Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. As a disclaimer, let's disclaim some things. Entertainment channel, my opinions, not here to slander anyone. Today I just want to have a discussion with you about some things that should keep our eyes open in this case. Now, after watching the recent hearings on the hearings, whether the hearings should be open or closed to the public or not, something that was said in those hearings is something that should really pique your interest. And it's, of course, these motions to compel for the discovery. Now, if we're to believe everything's on the up and up, then the motions to compel on the discovery is, like Ann Taylor said, it's just not being given to the defense a year and a half later. Now, the things that she's requesting would be the things that would have proven the probable cause affidavit. Year and a half later, they still don't have these things. So let's think back to the very beginning. And I was going to show you a video of an attorney explaining the differences between if you want to do a speedy trial or not, but I don't think I'm going to add any videos to this one. Let's just have a discussion. Okay, so if you're requesting a speedy trial, and you must request that speedy trial from the beginning, you would have a pretty clear indication that you did not do this, and a speedy trial would be in your favor for this reason. All these things that are taking place now over this extended long period of time, like getting the discovery and everything, well, if you requested a speedy trial and they set a speedy trial date, guess what? The prosecution, any evidence they would have used in the trial would have had to have been disclosed to the defense, or else they wouldn't have been able to use it in the trial. So all that stuff they're talking about now that they don't have, that is trying to lead to the dismissal of the case, they wouldn't have had then either. They wouldn't have needed that preliminary hearing. That grand jury indictment wouldn't have come into much of a play because they'd had a trial date set. And according to everything that we're hearing now, that trial would have never been set because the prosecution didn't have the evidence, according to them, to be able to give to the defense to set the trial. And then once that trial date was set, if the prosecution didn't have the evidence to give to the defense, they wouldn't have been able to actually go to trial, and then charges would have been dismissed. That's how that works. If they set a speedy trial date and the prosecution isn't ready by that trial date, unless they have some really, really good reasons, like people are on vacation in another country that would be testifying, then they couldn't push out the speedy trial date. And once that date passed, not only would they have had to dismiss all the charges, but they wouldn't have been able to bring charges against the defendant again for the same crime. That's how speedy trial works. They didn't opt for the speedy trial, though. And they should have known they wouldn't have had discovery at that point. So speedy trial should have been something that they really went for. But as I mentioned in videos past, and I could show you a video of an attorney explaining this, once the speedy trial date passes, then it's delay is always going to be the tactic on the defense because of all the reasons I've spoke about in the past, okay? So then we get into the looming question that has always been looming. Why does Bryan Kohberger have a public defender representing him in this case? And as I exposed in recent videos, why does Bryan Kohberger have the public defender that's involved in all the other cases involving drugs there in Latah County and Moscow, Idaho, and Kootenai County? Why does he have that same public defender that's involved in all of those reduction of charges cases for people that gave evidence? He's got that same attorney. Oh, and it's the same prosecutor. Oh, and it's the same judge. Huh. Almost every one of those defendants that obviously turned evidence on somebody has the same attorneys, prosecutors, and judge involved in their cases. I wonder why. And I wonder why that everybody that I've suggested that's involved in this case in an informant capacity is sitting in that Latah County Jail right now. Several of them. You know, they took down that big drug trafficking organization. Potentially took down Mr. KOHBERGER. Oh, and by the way, if Mr. KOHBERGER was one of the ones involved in taking out the 4 Idaho students, and as I've suggested, they were taken out due to drug trafficking, people turning over other people, then what would have KOHBERGER's role in that really been? I don't know. I've suggested it a long time back. Never changed my thoughts on that. Pretty certain that I'm correct on it, but y'all figure that out. And I'm not going to spell this stuff out for you. Just number and letter here. This is it. This is it. No, I'm gonna let you figure this stuff out for yourself, but I'm gonna give you enough information for you to figure it out. So let's talk about the KOHBERGERs. Everybody's bringing up the KOHBERGERs here lately. When I say the KOHBERGERs, I'm not talking about Bryan sitting over there in that county jail getting fat. And oh yeah, Bryan's starting to get fat in that county jail, isn't he? Have you seen him in the last few court hearings? The boy's plumping up. He's probably up 40 pounds now, which is interesting considering county jail food is typically not the kind of food that would make you fat. Okay, if I've visited many county jails, and one of the objectives of the county jail is to keep the food so minimal and so terrible that you don't want to go back and spend another night in a county jail ever. That's part of the deterrent. So how the heck is Mr. KOHBERGER all of a sudden gaining all this weight off that county jail food? Yeah, I don't think he's eating it. I don't think he's eating the county jail food. I think he's getting a special diet. I know they said that he requested a special vegetarian diet. Yeah, good luck in a county jail requesting a special diet, okay? But I guess in his case, maybe that happened. The other thing that's interesting, if you ask the family of one of the victims, they're like, why does this guy get to come to all of his court hearings in a clean-shaven 3-piece suit when almost every other suspect that's on trial, especially for a heinous trial such as this, has to come in their jailhouse jumpsuit? Why doesn't Mr. KOHBERGER? Well, that is a good point. Why does he get to shave up, put a suit on, and come to all of his preliminary hearings? You can call them that. They're hearings on the motions here. All these hearings that happen before the actual hearing. But he gets to eat up and he gets to dress up, go in there and sit with his public defender and her team, and sit across from that prosecutor who half the time is really trying to get Mr. KOHBERGER, and the other half the time is trying to protect Mr. KOHBERGER's rights to a fair trial and trying to keep Mr. KOHBERGER from looking too bad. Y'all notice that? Even the judge, half the time he's pointing out Mr. KOHBERGER, and half the time he's, trying to make sure that he doesn't look too bad for media coverage or anything else that's going on. All just very curious, isn't it? Very curious. Now let's talk about those KOHBERGERs. Talk about curious, because you got a family that everybody's mentioned. Why aren't they speaking out? They made that one statement and then you don't ever hear anything from them. Why aren't anybody speaking out for them? That's true. Why aren't they speaking out? Oh, by the way, his sisters. Heck, they both lost their job because of this. Now that's really interesting. Now one of his sisters was an actress, so losing their actress job, I'm sure, would not be a difficult thing. But the other one was a school counselor. Now, if I'm not mistaken, even the counselor position in the schools are a tenured position, which means, well, even if they're not a tenured position, it's a what's called a union position. Okay, so if you know anything about teachers, teachers are all in what's called a teachers union. And because of that teachers union wielding its power, it is really, really difficult to fire a teacher. So a counselor would also be in that union. So it would be really, really difficult to fire a teacher's counselor. Yet they fired her because her brother committed a crime and, across the country. That would never set well with me. How can you just go fire somebody because of something their brother did? And if you did, how the heck were you able to fire somebody that's in a teachers union? Yeah, that is a feat in itself. And then what happened to them? They just never got another job. We never hear anything from them. I wonder why that is. Look at the big picture, folks. There was a few things that I got wrong about this case from the beginning. One of the things I got wrong is how Mr. Kohberger was going to have to protect his family. It was my contention that he was protecting his family by keeping his mouth shut. Well, as I look how everything is going in this case, I don't believe that's the case any longer. I believe his family is being protected. Not by Kohberger, not by some big drug trafficking organization, but by the feds. Yep, I believe they're in witness protection right now. Why? Well, because their brother has operated as a witness. Now, what kind of information could Mr. Kohberger have given up? Well, probably some information that helped take down that big drug trafficking organization they took down in March. But what information would he have on them? Well, if that was a drug hit to send a message like I contend, and there were people hired to send that message, well, who other than one of the people that were hired would have direct knowledge of who hired them and why? I'll let y'all figure that out for yourself. But I just wanted to, have a little chat with you today, kind of put that out there. And if you like this channel, subscribe to it. Hit that like button, let other people out there see it and ponder it, because the Idaho 4 community won't touch it with a 10-foot pole, no matter what receipts I give them. So I'll just keep putting it out there for y'all. Post your comments, post your criticisms, post your ideas, your thoughts. I like to hear them. I like to read them. And until next time, Pavarotti's out.